Right, welcome everyone to our webinar on STP Phase 2 reporting. So today we're just going to go through that and what it means. I've got a little agenda drafted for today. So we're going to talk about what it is, what your actions are, and within that I've broken that up into 3 steps which align to the 3 steps that you will be utilising when you're in Xero, so it aligns. And then we can jump into our demo company, have a quick look. And I'll pass on the Xero resources that are available to you to use when you're preparing your Xero file for this transition. So what's STP Phase 2? So in the 2019-2020 budget, the government approved the expansion of STP. So that was that they expanded it so that it can gather more detailed information from employers in doing their payroll systems, okay? Because there's a lot of information in Xero that just doesn't get sent to the ATO. So now the ATO have built what they want so that then all cloud software can forward that information through. So and so they can sieve it. So why did it take so long? So obviously this was, the 1920 budget, because ATO obviously had to build it, legislate it. Then all the software tools then had to build it as well to fall in line, meet their requirements. And then there's that whole transition of getting employers, so those that use the softwares, to update their systems so that they're ready to report when they need to. So Xero has, they had an extension granted, so it's all STP Phase 2 has to be reported to the ATO by the first payday after the 31st of March this year. So we've still got a bit more time to do it. And to be honest, it's not that much of an arduous job to do it, but it may, be a little bit confusing, not quite sure on where it fitted for you, what differences you need to change for your business. So that's why, we're running this today to help you filter through all the information that you've got from Xero to make sure that you get your file up and running to go. So step 1 is the employee details of updating your Xero file. So you've got to update all of your active employees in Xero. It doesn't matter, it's because there's little bits of information that the ATO want to know more specifically. If you've got employees in your payroll that are actually being terminated, now is a really great time to terminate them off the system, okay? So they're no longer showing up in your pay calendars and pay runs. So what does that look like? What employee details is the ATO specifically looking at? It's looking at the employment type. So whether they're an employee or a contractor. The income type is looking at, how they're paid. So are they paid on salaries, or are you a closely held employee? So we're going to look a little bit closer at that in a minute. The ATO want to know also the employment basis, so whether they're full-time, part-time, casual employment, and their tax scale. So when we talk about their tax scale, we're looking at the pay-as-you-go tax scale that they're under, so how much should be withheld from their particular pay cycles. And for most business owners, you'll find that it's actually just regular, it's the same, it's not going to change. It's when they're in a certain industry that it may actually change, okay? But if you want further advice on that, obviously we're always just a phone call or an email away. So let's have a little bit more detail about these employee details. So the first one I want to cover off on is that closely held employees. If, in the ATO's eyes, if you are a director or a family member, a shareholder of a company, or you're a beneficiary of a trust, the ATO consider you as a closely held employee. So in this instance, the ATO want to know about this within your employee data. So there's some boxes that you'll check in going through setting up your STP Phase 2, okay? And in some instances, some closely held employees might only actually take payments from throughout the year and then claim a director's fee at the end of the financial year. Now, under STP Phase 2, you're not allowed to do that. The ATO require you to report this quarterly. So as a director, you might be taking funds from the business, but then you need to run one payroll at least quarterly to tell the ATO, what was the wages and the withholding for those funds being taken out of the company, or if you're a beneficiary of a trust. And it's as simple as setting up your pay calendar to facilitate this. Okay, so it's nothing too arduous. But obviously we're always here to assist you in that particular transition. So if you think you're a closely held employee, that there's something a little bit different that you need to do, you can always ask us to go through your file and have a look to see how you've set it up. The next is the contractor payments. Remember, I said that when you're setting up your employee details, is you've got to choose whether you're an employee or a contractor. If you're a business that works with contractors, and I'll use the building and construction industry to reflect on, is that most builders in the construction industry are going to have subcontractors that work for them. In essence, if you're just paying invoices that your subcontractor sends to you, well, then you can continue to do that and then just lodge your TPAR reports at the end of the financial year. So there's no change for you. But if you have your contractors set up in Xero Payroll to facilitate a superannuation only payments that you're utilising for them, well, then you need to go through that employee setup of nominating them as a contractor and going through those steps. It's not too arduous. It's just a step that you need to do because that's the ATO want that reporting into them every time, through that STP phase 2. So there's sort of the two sort of special considerations when you're going through updating step 1 of those employee details and records on your Xero file. And you've probably seen you've got little warnings sitting there to do it. And we'll quickly have a look at that in the demo company shortly. So once you've done step 1, you then need to move on to step 2, which is updating your pay items. So checks are required to be done in your existing pay items. So think about your pay items. It could be overtime, ordinary pay, it could be carers leave, all these, not carers leave, it could be some other allowances that you are paying your employees. Some businesses have many. Some businesses might only actually use 1 or 2 different pay items in their file. It's really important that you go through and you have a look at what you've got to make sure that they meet the ATO reporting categories for it. And Xero provides a great tool on what those reporting categories are to make sure that they match. So the main ones that to remember is your allowances. So if anyone's getting allowances, make sure you pay close attention when you're updating those. But if it's ordinary earnings, it's pretty simplistic that it's going to be set on the right settings already. But you just have to do a check and then complete that, notifying Xero that you've done that check within the steps that I'll show you shortly. And then the next one to have a look at, so step 3. So you've already done step 1 and 2. They have to be complete before you can look at step 3, which is your leave items. So the ATO requires new categories for paid leave. And these previously, all of your leave was just grouped together. So if you were paid leave, it was just all sent to the ATO under one group. Now the ATO want to break it up a little bit more. So in essence, most leave categories are under their category O, type O they call it, such as annual leave, compassionate leave, long service leave. But some of the leave that is broken up in a different category is things such as community service leave, reserve leave, jury duty, things like that have to be reported differently to Xero. So that's why you have to go through your leave categories and make sure you've identified them. If you're in a business where that has not affected you, so therefore you haven't had to use those leave categories, well, you might not even have them made up within your Xero file. So it's just about being aware, and if you can understand the why, then when something comes up, I'm going to make a call to get some help, or I know I need to do something, so I'm going to do some research and fix it up myself. So you have to assign each leave category of your active leave pay items to that ATO category that they have in there. So let's take a look in the demo company of Xero and where to go and what it looks like. Okay, I'll just bring across my screen. Okay, so I'm just in the demo company. So just remember the functionality in here sometimes isn't great, but it's as simple as going to payroll and then clicking on single touch payroll. Because obviously this is all related to it. And in essence, we're looking at the STP Phase 2 to get it ready. And you all can go into this particular screen and you can see where you're up to. When you've completed all the steps, it comes up as mark as completed. Okay, so there's heaps of links. You can click on all of these links to have a look at anything. They've got videos that you can review. There's handout documents, which are great for understanding the different leave categories, or maybe it's the employment types. And, you know, if it's this in Xero, what should it be in Xero that reflects what the ATO needs? So have a look at those. But step 1 here, it's telling us to update the employee profiles, which was what we talked about. And then, you know, it's got a little video you can watch. It's got a document you can have a read of as well. It depends on how you want to consume your information. And then you can go in to update employee profiles. So it takes you exactly where you need to go within Xero to update your employee. So within here, we're having a quick look at one of the employees and we need to update the employee details. Where this is, it's under the employment and the taxes tabs is where you would have seen that there's little changes. So if you've put on employees since such time that Xero has built this, you would have noticed that the screen looks a little bit different. So unfortunately, this is not compatible to STP Phase 2 in the demo company, but in here you would see that there is different things that you've got to add in there. I'll just see if the taxes line has anything. I'll just see if I can update it. Rightio. So the employee details, this is what it's going to look like. Remember I spoke about on the slide just before about whether, so if you're doing James, is he an employee or a contractor? So most of you are going to be selecting that they're an employee. What sort of income type? Are they closely held? Is he a director of the company, or are they an employee on salary and wages? Okay, so select whichever one's applicable. And remember that tax scale we're looking at. So these are the differences to choose from. And in this case, he's just a regular, he's hitting on the regular tax scale. So I just hit save and continue. And then it's saying here that, oh, you're not using, you know, Xero Me. So it's giving you a bit of a hint. If you want to start using timesheets or get them to access their own pay slips, you can do that. Or you can just go back to employees. So now you can see James, his details are being updated for STP2, but that's only step 1 of that particular space. So if I go back now to the single touch payroll field, and STP Phase 2, I would obviously have to go through all of those employees to be ready and fix them up. So you can see only 1 of 6 are being done. So it's not going to be able to check it off until you've done that. But let's just have a quick look at what step 2 and 3 is going to look like for you. It's got a video to watch. It's got a booklet to read if you wish. And then you can go through and replace any pay items. Obviously, it's not letting me do this because because the first step hasn't been done. Remember, each step must be done in the order. But what you're going to do is you're going to allocate all of these different pay items to what their earnings lines are. And then step 3 is about our leave categories, if you remember, and then updating those leave categories. So it's taking you directly to where you need to be within Xero's settings to make sure you're updating them. Now, what I didn't talk about was step 4. So step 4 is enrolling in the single touch payroll Phase 2. So at the moment, that is not live yet, but you'll be notified through Xero. I'm sure there'll be screens that will flash up to you to make sure that you do step 4 when it becomes available. And I don't have a deadline on when that is going to become available. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too scary to have a look at. You're probably a little bit familiar with all the different warnings that have been coming up on Xero already. So have a go at setting it up. By all means, if you're not quite sure and you've gone through it all, you can ask us just to have a general look. Obviously, we don't know intimately about all of your employees and where they sit. If you've got something specific, maybe it's the contractor, closely held employees, maybe it's an allowance type that you're not quite sure on. By all means, ask the questions. We're here to help. Now, I've got some resource links up here on the screen. This will also go to our YouTube channel, this recording, so therefore we'll post those links within our YouTube channel when we upload it. But the main one to really remember is in your Xero file. If you go to payroll, go to single touch payroll, and then click on STP Phase 2, that is where all of these links are, okay, that are really helpful. Xero's put a lot of time and effort into making sure that their users have good grounding in order to meet the requirements by the 31st of March and the support that they need. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat box or speak up, but otherwise it is a matter of emailing into us what it is that you think you are not sure on and you need some help with. That's what we're here to do. Thanks very much for joining us today. I really appreciate it, and I hope this recording is useful to you in making sure that you're ready for STP Phase 2 by the due date of 31st of March 2023. Thank you.